Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Today we're going to talk about the two iconic French song cycles for female voice, Berlioz's Les Nuits d'été and Ravel's Shéhérazade. Two marvelous pieces of music. They've been recorded a zillion times. They're often coupled together on disc, and so we're going to talk about versions that are coupled on disc, with one exception, which we'll get to right away. Now, as you probably remember from my video on historical recordings, where I talk about the Désormières, Pelléas et Mélisande, the authentic style of French singing that we heard at the beginning of the 20th century is largely gone. It involved a certain lightness of timbre and a clarity of diction that was really quite extraordinary and totally natural, and almost what they call parlando, almost speaking style of delivering the words. And we don't really hear so much of that anymore, and it's a shame, it is. But there are so many great singers who have done this music. And so I have 6 of them here, and we're going to talk about them one by one. And these are all recommendable. They're all worth hearing for the first of all, the music, of course, but second of all, for the personality of the singers, who were extraordinary exponents of this repertoire and of the style that was necessary to put it over, even if their French isn't always parfait, like mine, for example. It doesn't matter. But what really matters when you do these songs, I have to say, I can't stress enough, is clarity. Clarity of pronunciation. Even if you're not pronouncing it right, it has to be clear. These are wordy songs. They tend to be. I mean, even Villanelle, the first of Les Nuits d'été, by Berlioz, which only lasts 2 minutes long, but it's got that's 3 verses or several verses, and it's Quand viendra la saison nouvelle. Well, usually, the first words are Quand viendra la saison nouvelle, which is nouvelle in French, sung French. And usually you hear that. Usually you hear something in one of these songs like Quand viendra la saison nouvelle, and then the rest is a mess. Because it rhymes, so they'll do the rhyme part, but all the rest is a mess. It's kind of nice to hear some of the words that happen in between, or Azie from Scheherazade, the first song in Scheherazade. I mean, it's a travelogue. It's an endless text. It's endless. And it's like you get Azie, Azie, Azie. And after that, well, God knows what's going on. So it's really nice to have singers who care about the text and who know the text, and that's saying something. It really is. But anyway, let's talk about some recordings and some singers and see what we come up with, shall we? Now, the first, this is not a single disc, but it's a set that contains both of them. You've got to hear Suzanne Danco, and thank God Decca Eloquence has issued this fabulous box containing all of her recitals. It's 8 CDs. Now, she did Scheherazade twice, both with Ernest Ansermet, once in 1948 with the Paris Conservatory Orchestra, yay, and once in 1954 with the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande, and she did in 51 Les Nuits d'été, and of all places, Cincinnati, yes, with the Cincinnati Symphony. And let me see, who's going to conduct? I think it's like Thor Johnson or someone like that. I was totally shocked here. Yes, Thor Johnson, the conductor of the Cincinnati Symphony. And they're the ones who did Les Nuits d'été. Even this performance is quite interesting, of authentic French style, because it's fast. It's faster than almost anything that came later. And it has a lightness that's just wonderful, absolutely wonderful and delicious. So, Suzanne Danco was a great singer in the French style, but she did a lot else. She did Bach cantatas with Karl Munchinger. She did Mozart. She did Richard Strauss Lieder, a grand singer. And this 8-disc box is, if you're into, great singing and French singers particularly, then you got to have Suzanne Danco, and her Ravel and Berlioz is astonishing. So I want to start off with that, just to say right away, because it's a wonderful thing, and you should know that it's out there. Another marvelous production from Australian Eloquence, and I can't recommend it highly enough, not least for these two song cycles. But now let's get to all the rest of them are modern stereo versions, and not all of them are easy to find, but you should be able to source them more or less. Jessye Norman passed away recently. It was a shock, I didn't really think that was ever going to happen. I have actually a wonderful little Jessye Norman story. I saw her do Das Lied von der Erde in San Jose when I was at Stanford, and they had an autograph opportunity afterwards. I mean, it was a big, big deal that she would appear with the San Jose Symphony, and she was a very good sport about it, and sang beautifully. And afterwards, we had this lineup to say hello and get an autograph and all that stuff. So I thought, what the heck, I'll go get an autograph. And there was a feature on her in some lifestyle magazine. I don't remember what it was. Now, as you know, Jessye Norman was a large woman, a very large woman. And she was also tall. I mean, she was big in all of her proportions. And she was very frank about it, humorous about it. She couldn't, she said to me, I can't hide it, They're going to notice. That's what she said. And she had the most affected delivery. She was one of those people who spent way too much time in front of a diction coach, and she would talk about her voice. She would call it my noise. Oh, yes, you want to know about my noise. She sounded almost like that old guy who did the music appreciation disc commercial. Remember? I'm sure you'll recognize this lovely melody as Stranger in Paradise, She had that. It was very odd. Very, very odd. But she was funny. And we were in line waiting to get our autographs, and I had this article from this lifestyle magazine, and it talked about her morning regimen of swimming and then having this enormous breakfast, and there was this photo of her in a swimming pool wearing a bathing cap, toasting with a glass of orange juice with this huge breakfast on the side of the pool. And all you saw, because the water was reflected, her head was above the water, and behind her was this enormous form. I mean, it was magnified because the water was just huge. It was unbelievable. It was like a whale hanging, with the head of a woman. It was hysterically funny and just unbelievably unflattering. And she let it go. So that was the picture I wanted her to autograph. I had it. And so I get up to the line and I show her the picture to look at the autograph. She looks at it, she looks at me, she goes, "Oh my God, you have that picture?" I said, "Yeah." She was laughing and she signed it. She was great. So, she was a wonderful, wonderful singer. I mean, her French might be a little thick for the authentic French sound, but her voice was absolutely gorgeous. And these songs were very, very good for her because she didn't have to go all that high. She had an incredibly gorgeous voice, except for when she got to a high C. She didn't really have a high C. Anyway, this is with Colin Davis, the London Symphony. It's available. I don't think it's available separately, but it's available. There was a 3-disc Philips box of the best of Jessye Norman. It's in there. And along with that incredible Strauss 4 Last Songs with Court Mazur. Very, very, very beautiful. I mean, just in terms of tone and timbre. And of course, Colin Davis was a great Berlioz conductor. He did them also, Les Nuits d'été, with original singers in their original transpositions, because Berlioz, this is not a song cycle. They were originally, there are 6 of them, 6 original songs, all written for different singers at different times, and Berlioz later collected them together. And one more thing I do have to say about Les Nuits d'été is that everyone performs it in the wrong order, as far as I'm concerned. I don't really like Les Nuits d'été. I think I better just come out and say it. I think it's boring, at least the way it's usually performed. Why? Because Villanelle, which is really the only quick one, I mean, the last one, L'Île Inconnue, is a little bit better, but it's almost a little faster, but they're all slow and droopy and heavy, and Je suis le spectre de la rose, you just want to die. It's miserable. And what they really ought to do, because it's not really a song cycle, is Villanelle, which always comes first, even though it's only 2 minutes long. It really should go third. You know, you should start with Le Spectre de la Rose and then do Sur les Lagunes, and then you do Villanelle, and then Absence and Au Cimetière, and then L'Île Inconnue. That way, at least you get 2 droopy ones, a lively one, 2 droopy ones, and a lively one, instead of a lively one, 4 droopy ones, and then another lively one. I don't understand why people insist on doing it in that. Maybe it's the published order, I don't remember, but to me, it just doesn't work. It never works. You just, by the time you get to Absence, you want to be absent. I mean, it really is. That's how I feel about the piece. But anyway, when you have a disc, you can play it in whatever order you want. And frankly, that's how I do it, if I'm going to listen to the whole cycle at once. Now let's talk about some other recordings. Here we have Frederica von Stade. These are wonderful. I don't know why she never got the attention or the credit she really deserved for being such a fantastic singer in this music. It's with the Boston Symphony and Seiji Ozawa. The Berlioz and the Ravel originally came out on separate CDs. Later, they were collected onto a single CD. This is probably out of print too. It's enough to make you crazy. Von Stade's legacy has not been treated terribly well, in my view, by Sony. They did release a Von Stade recital box a few years ago, which is also out of print. It's enough to, but this is one of the great recordings of these two pieces. She was an effortlessly honest, beautiful, sincere singer. If her diction wasn't perfectly idiomatically French, her style and her delivery was, and that's what really matters. And it's a beautiful, beautiful disc. I should be in print forever. I wish they would find a way to market and sell these things. One of the most iconic of all the iconic versions of these iconic works, however, was Janet Baker with Sir John Barbirolli. This, of course, is now in the big 109 or 8 or whatever it is disc Barbirolli box, but it's also in the Janet Baker box, and it's in like boxes of boxes. It's in the box, and it's available separately. Thank God. Janet Baker was a great leader singer. She was one who really had the diction, too. I mean, she could pronounce things beautifully. She was totally sincere, absolutely wonderful, maybe a touch lacking in sensuality in the last 2 of the Shéhérazade songs. You know, she was sort of the English nobility style of singing and delivery, you know, very serious, very straightforward, but boy, oh boy, could she sing. And this is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. You got the New Philharmonia Orchestra, and you have Barbirolli, who is always his genial and loving self, and it's a great disc. Absolutely a great disc, and you should consider it very strongly. For some reason, I think recently people seem to have forgotten about Baker and a lot of the things she did, but she made wonderful, wonderful leader and recital records. So there you go. Next, now this is an odd sort of mixed bag. This is on Eloquence again, because the original Philips recording has long since vanished, but it's Ely Ameling in Shéhérazade and Hildegard Behrens in Les Nuits d'été. Now, I have to be honest. The Ameling disc originally came with a couple Duparc songs. It's, L'Invitation au Voyage and Chanson Triste, and the Debussy La Demoiselle Élue. Now, the Debussy here, the Blessed Damsel, is hilarious. I just have to tell you about it because it's so much fun. The poem was by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who wrote it in memory of his beloved, and with great sentiment and sincerity had the poem buried with her when she died. Then he needed some cash, and so he ordered the body exhumed to get the poem back to sell it to his publisher, which is, to me, it says everything you want to know about the sincerity of fin de siècle high romanticism, right? I mean, it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful story. Anyway, but forget that. The original disc was just the Ameling stuff, the Debussy and the Duparc and the Shéhérazade. And frankly, Ameling's is my favorite Shéhérazade in the history of the universe, because Ameling is one of those, oh God, she was such a great singer. I mean, another one of those singers of complete, selfless honesty and integrity and musicality, and she sang it's like she's singing a folk song when she does these pieces, no matter how stylized or how difficult they get or how much tone they require. She just delivers it like she's sitting across from you in a room having a normal conversation. Even the sound of her voice at the beginning of Scheherazade, she goes, Azi, Azi. Never mind, I'm not doing it again. I tortured you once. But the way she does it, immediately it's Ameling, and she's speaking to you. It's wonderful. I can't even express how great it is. Unfortunately, Hildegard Behrens in Les Nuits d'été, she has not got the right voice for it. It's a little heavy. It's a little desperate, I think. I don't know. It's with the who's doing this? It's with the Vienna Symphony and Francis Travis, the famous Francis Travis. I don't know what to tell you. It's not horrible, but it's nobody's vision of Les Nuits d'été. And so, but you do get the whole Ameling disc. So for Scheherazade, I go for Ameling. Now, however, there is, as some of you probably know, a classic, fabulous version that is the one that you got to have. It's absolutely great. It's Regine Crespin with Ernest Ansermet and the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande. And you get, on this particular coupling, you get Les Nuits d'été, you get Scheherazade, you get the Debussy Trois Chansons de Bilitis, and you get 7 Poulenc songs. What could be bad? Crespin was, of course, one of the great, 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 great French singers. I saw her in some of her last performances in Dialogues des Carmélites, Dialogues of the Carmelites at the Met. And the fascinating thing about it, she sang the old prioress. And the most fascinating thing about her, and she was in it actually with Jessye Norman, who sang the new prioress. That was some cast. She does that death scene, and the death scene goes on forever, and it's fabulous. And she sang it in English, as Poulenc directed it should be sung in the language of the country in which it's being produced. She sang it in English, and she had a very heavy French accent. But I will say this, her English was the most understandable of anybody in the cast, including Jessye Norman, whose big opening aria as the new prioress was completely unintelligible. But Crespin, doing this death scene, every single word you could understand. And that was the French style. She had it. She also sang German superbly because she's in the Carillon Ring. She did Sieglinde. She did Brunhilde. She had that kind of voice. It was very flexible. But she is perfect in these songs. It's one of the great song recitals in the history of humanity. One of the greatest recordings Crespin ever made. And here's the thing. Only Crespin, and let me get it here again. And here we go. This one, von Stade, come with the texts. And you really need to know what the words are. You don't have to follow them if you don't want to, but you gotta know the words. Scheherazade was written by a sort of demented French poet, artiste named Tristan Klingsor. He adopted that name. His real name was Léon Leclerc. Yeah, so that's why he named himself Tristan Klingsor. His wife's name was Kundry Isolde, and he had a cat named Beckmesser. And I know that because my cat knew his cat, or a relative of my cat a few generations back knew his cat and told me about Beckmesser. Anyway, Tristan Klingsor was obviously a bit Wagnerian, but he wrote this exotic bit of fake Oriental poetry, and Crespin sings it as well as it can be sung. And she's got Ansermet, who recorded it already twice with Suzanne Danco, and who knows it as well as anybody knows it. And this is just a great disc. And it comes with a lovely, lovely booklet that I just have to show you because it does have complete texts and translations of Fritz Wunderlich's Dichterliebe and other German songs. There's a typical, I could go on about these kinds of errors in productions. There is not a trace of Regine Crespin in this except the back cover that tells you what's going on. I think it's hilarious. I really do. But what can I say? What can I do? It's just the way things are, and we have to make do. Fortunately, I have another version of this in the overflow room, so I have the text, at least I think. I have to look at that booklet too now to see what's actually in it. You know, back in the day when LPs were hanging out, I remember getting the Kubelik recording of Hindemith's Matthäus der Maler, which I was very excited to hear because I'd written a master's thesis on it, you know, and actually, this is before I wrote the master's thesis, but I was writing a master's thesis on it, and this recording came out so I could actually hear the whole opera. And, you know, it was fascinating. I put it on, and what did I hear? It was the Beverly Sills Traviata. And then, of course, the Schulte Walküre at one point or another had one disc of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirates of Penzance mixed in with the middle of it. And, you know, these things happened. And we all left and learned to deal with it. And that was why record stores in those days were necessary and accepted returns. Remember returning things because they were wrong and you could get new ones. It didn't cost you more. It was annoying, but that was part of the fun, wasn't it? So anyway, these are my recommendations for Shéhérazade and Les Nuits d'été. Danco, Norman, Baker, Ameling, in Scheherazade only. And you get Nuits d'été with Barons. Yeah, right, okay. Von Stade, not necessarily in this order, but at the end of the day, you must begin with Crespin and Ansermet. That's the way to go, and there it is. So thank you all. Enjoy these wonderful song cycles in whatever order you want to play the songs. And take care. Keep on listening, folks. Bye-bye.